Hello, I'm Stephen A. King, and you're watching Hot Topics, where we bring you the hottest topics with a legal twist. Today, we're back with two of Los Angeles' finest criminal defense attorneys, Mr. Austin Dove and Christopher Smith. Okay, so today, guys, we're going to follow up on the Sandusky's case. Jared Sandusky's arrested and charged again, new sex charges. Chris, what does this mean for Mr. Sandusky?
Well, essentially, two new victims popped up on the scene, and so now they've filed additional charges. But it gives the prosecution now an opportunity to rearrest Sandusky, raise his bail amount to the possibility where he won't be able to get out again unless he can post a significant amount of bond. And it also gives him an opportunity to have him do the perp walk one more time in front of the cameras and get the media attention again back on their side.
And Austin, 10 total victims. How is this going to affect Mr. Sandusky?
Well, in short, where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, if there wasn't enough with 8 victims coming forward, 10 certainly raises the ante even higher. You might recall during the time off that Mr. Sandusky went on his own sort of PR mission. He went out, he started making open comments in the public, and I think the DA, this is their way of firing back. This game can go on, but with the resources that the prosecutor has, they can fire back awfully potently. So this is an example of what happens when you go flapping off at the mouth while you're out of custody on what was at the time fairly light bail and fairly lenient circumstances. Now they've come back and they've shown that this is a multiple round fight, and they've got the last say at this point.
Now, Chris, can you elaborate more on what type of charges are being brought against Sandusky?
Well, basically, these are similar charges of sexual acts done on minors. And these two additional victims, I'm sure, have told similar stories to the other 8, that Sandusky took advantage of them, underprivileged, I'm assuming, and used gifts and other things to try to convince them or sway them to do what he wanted them to do in a sexual fashion.
So it seems as if the cards are really stacking up against him.
It appears that this case is going to be very, very difficult for Mr. Sandusky. It's going to be very difficult for his attorney to establish a legitimate defense to fight off these allegations.
Right. Sounds like a plot to me, folks. Now, let's get into another case, similar case. We have another child assault case against a coach at a major university, Bernie Fine. Yes. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I gotta say that I was absolutely shocked when I heard about this allegation. I thought that there's no way there could be any legitimacy or truth to the allegations. I was like, what are the chances that two, high-profile universities would be facing, these kind of allegations? And initially, I was like, this will shortly be cleared up, no problems. Then to my surprise, there was some additional evidence that was uncovered about his contact with these 2 ball boys. And the university took action and fired him. And I think head coach also had to retract some of his statements in support of him. So he is, potentially looking at some charges, but what we've heard lately is that the prosecution may not have a basis to do it because the statute of limitations has expired.
Well, that brings up an interesting thought. Austin, can you tell us a little bit about the statute of limitations in the state case and why something like that may bar the prosecution from going forward?
Well, every defendant has a right to put on a defense in a timely fashion. And if you've been accused of something, especially something serious, you're more likely to be able to get witnesses, get facts, develop your side of the story closer to the time that the event happened. So the statute of limitation speaks to that. It basically says within a certain amount of time, the prosecutor either has to file charges or let them go, because otherwise you've bootstrapped or prevented the defendant from putting on a constitutionally adequate defense. So they've got that time limitation built in, and it starts from the day of the event. Now, in sex cases, sometimes it starts a little bit later. It can start when certain triggers happen, when a person reaches a certain age of majority, or when they had a reason to know and made a report about it. But that statute of limitation is built in for the protection of the defendant, and in many ways it protects the prosecution too, because it requires them to sort of get things going in a prompt fashion, as opposed to dragging things on and saying we'll get this when we get to. Both sides, it's in their best interest to move cases forward closer to the time that the events happened.
Say, guys, I really appreciate your time. Chris, in 20 seconds, could you go ahead and just give us a wrap up on what do you think about this case with Fine?
Well, I just think this is kind of sending a message, particularly out to the major universities, even small universities, that you need to look at your policies and procedures and how you handle allegations of this nature, how you don't let this stuff, go uninvestigated, how you don't sweep it under the carpet, because there's all sorts of potential liability out to the universities, not to mention to possibly, protecting other young people who could become subjected to this kind of conduct. So I think it's just a wake-up call to all those folks out there that they need to do their job.
Okay. Hey, Mr. Austin Dove, 20 seconds. Can you give us a wrap-up?
Well, this is one of those cases that's going to resonate for a long time to come. Universities have an obligation, but money is power, and these universities get a lot of money from their sports programs, from these relationships with the NCAA, from all the bowl money that comes in and all the sports money that comes in. There's always going to be that sort of tug of war between someone's desire to win and doing the right thing in another context. That's going to be there forever. But now we know that the bar has probably been raised a bit as far as what someone's going to be required to do when there's some evidence that something inappropriate has occurred.
Thank you. There you have it. Board certified criminal law specialist Austin Dove, high profile, high powered criminal defense specialist Christopher Smith. LegalEase TV, we're coming at you.